So record on this computer. So we're connecting to server 2 to promote it to a domain controller because we did not finish that last week. So we're logging in as administrator at contoso.com on server 2. And we'll finish up the domain controller promotion. So server manager should launch. If not, you can find it in the taskbar or a quick tile right here under the start menu. The server manager loaded, you'll have an exclamation point showing you that it's not a domain controller. Also, our last chance to fix the computer name is at this point in time. Server 2 is spelled right on my machine. So that's the last time that you can fix the name and not have problems long-term. So my name's correct. We'll go ahead and click the link under that exclamation point. Now, we originally created a new forest. We've already got a forest. We don't need to do that anymore. That's done once and likely hardly ever done again. Said unless you work for a hosting firm. It's extremely rare to ever do this or you're in a lab playing, creating new things. Adding a domain controller is the default. That's the most common thing you'll do. Is you'll be adding new domain controllers, especially as Microsoft comes out with new versions and you need to upgrade in future years. So it's already highlighted there. Since we've already joined the domain, it found contoso.com already. You wouldn't have to already join the domain. You could just manually type it in and then provide the /Contoso administrator and then the password for it to join straight in. But we don't have to worry with that part. So server 2, add a new domain controller, should auto fill out the rest of the credentials because we logged in appropriately. Just go next. Now the website I talked about, it's also linked under week 3, Sol's blog right here. It says the global catalog service should not be running on the infrastructure master. So this is server 2. And his example shows moving infrastructure master to server 2, along with 2 other master roles. Is there something here we might want to do? Look at your dialog box here. What do you think we should do here? If global catalog is not supposed to be run on the server with infrastructure master. What do you say? You uncheck the global catalog service. You can do that. I'll show you if you forget to do that, where you can turn it off after it's promoted. It's really easy, but we can uncheck it there. If it's forgotten, it's easily fixable. So I'm just going to supply our lab password for the directory service restore mode. And there should not be much of anything else to change, just hitting next until we get it finished and installed. Let's make sure there's no other changes needed. You can look at these dialog boxes, but there's nothing else to change. Once the prerequisites are checked, you can then just click the install. And this will go through the process and then reboot the system. And it will be a domain controller. Some of these computers that did not take very long of a process, and these systems rebooted, what, about 2 minutes? Something like that. That's really fast. Let's go ahead and log back into server 2 and check on some things. Just as I did with the first server, I'm going to double check my IP address in DNS settings to make sure the wizard didn't change. I told you before that the Forest server, the first one, it messes up the DNS settings, but probably not on this one. It's always good to double check once something like this goes, because it has been known in the past to change the DNS settings to 127.0.0.1 and then delete the secondary one. So it left it intact on my system. Probably the same on yours, but always good to double check things. So I'm going to go and just close out. We needed no changes on that. Now to follow Sol's blog of how to position the flexible single master operation roles. And there are also roles that you need to pay attention to if you're going to upgrade to newer domain controllers and take out old servers. You got to make sure the old server is not one of those masters. You need to migrate it if that was to ever happen. Let's look at tools and Active Directory users and computers. So I am logged into server 2. It doesn't truly matter if I was on server 1 or server 2. The only thing that matters is when you launch Active Directory users and computers, no matter what system you launch it on, you need to verify what server it connected to. It doesn't necessarily connect to the server that you logged into on the desktop. It may have connected to server 1. So check that at the top. You may have to move your middle bar over so you can see what server you're connected to. If you're not connected to server 2, you can change the domain controller and select it. For the recommendations here, you have to be connected to the domain controller that you want the services to be moved to. And that's why we're verifying that Active Directory users and computers is connected to server 2. And if I show you server 1, you don't have to look, you can just watch. But server 1 here is connected to server 1. I could do it from here, but I have to change the domain controller. And I could type in server 2, dosa.com. And change it over. But I'm going to stay on over here on server 2. Let's look under domain controllers. I'm going to verify that server 2 is not a global catalog. Which of these do you think is a global catalog? The one with the GC beside it. It's a domain controller and a global catalog, so they put GC there. This one, when we run the wizard, we unchecked global catalog, so it's unchecked. If it says global catalog here, you can right click and go to properties. So you can go ahead and do this, you can go to properties, and there's a new technology directory services settings button, NTDS. If you click on that, it takes you to the place where you can check or uncheck the global catalog service. So it's unchecked, which is good. You can alternatively find the same setting in Server Manager under Tools in a different tool set for Active Directory called Active Directory Sites and Services. So you can go ahead and launch that if you want. And we'll look at an alternative place. You have to, what they say, drill down, which means click on all these arrows through sites, default first site name, servers, server 2. You have to drill all the way down to that and find the NTDS settings, which is the same thing that button said on it, NTDS settings. If you right click and go to properties of that NTDS settings under server 2, you'll see the same dialog box and the same global catalog checkbox area. I'm sure there's probably other ways to click and get there. And those are the 2 ways that you'll likely see if you read how to get there. So I'm going to close that out because it's off. We didn't need to turn it off unless one of you forgot to on the wizard. To move those infrastructure master roles, you right click on the domain name, contesto.com. And if you right click on it, can you guess which option would be able to move those flexible single master operation roles? Hopefully it's kind of clear that you probably would click operation masters. Yes. So if you click on that, it has RID, PDC, and infrastructure. So looking back here at the little blog post, there's RID, infrastructure, and PDC. Microsoft made it easy to put all these 3 in the same spot because these are the most common ones you want to move to a second server just for load balancing purposes. So they coded it easy to do this and also following, their best practice too. The operation master is server 1, and we can transfer it to the server listed in the gray box. The server listed in the gray box always matches what is at the top of Active Directory users and computers right up here at the top. That's why I said we had to connect to the server we wanted to move the roles to, because you can't type anything in this gray box. It doesn't work. You have to be connected to it, and it shows you what the current master is. We don't want it there, so we click the change button and click yes and okay. It's really difficult. And you do that for the other 2. I think you might be able to handle that on your own. See if you can do the other 2 tabs up here on your own. That was exceedingly hard, but I finished. So now both gray boxes show server 2. Like I said, we're not going to see any difference in our labs. It's such a small size, but the processing would be, if you got a live network, in theory, it's supposed to be better. So I'm going to go ahead and okay and close all those out. Like I said, you're not going to remember that. But maybe you remember there's something you're supposed to do. As long as you remember there's something with some master role or something, keep that web link or a copy of this page or something. Okay, so now if I check the domain controllers. If I look at computers, there's no computer in there. All we have is domain controllers. And we got the master operation roles and stuff in place. The schema master and domain naming master are a lot more difficult to move. The domain naming master, if you ever wanted to know where it was, you had to move it because you're upgrading that server and throwing the old one away. It would be under Active Directory Domains and Trust tool. So Active Directory Domains and Trust allows you to right click at the very top, and there's an operation master, and that's the domains and trust. I'm not going to move it. I want to keep it on server one. If I was going to upgrade server one in the future and disable server one, I'd want to transfer this role before I disable it. I'd also want to transfer the schema master role, which requires some command line work to register some tools, and we're not going to go over that today. There's some you would have to read, and they got nice pictures, and the command line you can copy and paste to run the command lines and follow all the steps to make a hidden tool unhidden and access it and migrate the schema master across. The tool for managing the schema is well hidden because it's something that only Microsoft coders and stuff should use to change. Because if you change the schema manually, you basically just take the whole domain down. It's the structure of the database. It's basically what the schema is. So if you change the structure, Active Directory no longer works because all the tools are coded to work a certain way and expect certain things in the database. Cool. So nothing too amazing, but well, I guess it is kind of amazing. They pay people a lot of money to install and set up a domain like that. And the other parts are network admin. You're looking, 60 to 100,000 a year. Handle stuff. Of course, they'd want you to continue to maintain and do other stuff, but this is the engineering, highly engineering part. Cool. I said that we'd move on and install a core only server. What we've seen is maybe a little difficult, but not terribly difficult because it's a user interface that you're familiar with. You've got a mouse and icons in the start menu, and it's a Windows 10 interface. Now let's install the recommended deployment method of a server. And look what it looks like after we install. You have to select this. You can't change from core to desktop experience. It has to be installed a specific way. When they come out of 2012, they did allow you to switch back and forth from a graphics to a core, and then they stopped. Apparently there must have been too much technical issues switching back and forth that they no longer did that in 2016 and 2019. So let's create a new virtual machine. Since we're only going to have one of these, we're going to install from scratch. So we'll create a new virtual machine. And we're going to follow along with the same naming convention. We're going to name this one Server 3. And it's not going to be a domain controller. It's going to permanently be a member server. Although it could be a domain controller, we're just not going to make it one. Your best practice and best security is to not add anything to your domain controllers. So this third server and extra servers are always typically added to a network to house other things like print sharing, file sharing, web services, DHCP services, anything else other than Active Directory would be housed on member servers. So that's what they are good for. They're the heavy lifting side, I guess you would say. Active Directory is for the user accounts and controlling user rights to computer systems. And then these are the ones that actually serve out the resources. So as we move on, we're going to pick generation 2. Like we did before. We'll use you remember how much RAM? 4096. It defaults to a gig, which is 1024. So you can always look at that and use a calculator and multiply by 4 or 2 or 3 or whatever RAM you want to get to know what if you want 16 and 1024 times 16 to get 16,384, I think. I'd have to multiply, but I think that's the right number. We'll go and click next. Make sure that dynamic was checked. We're going to be internally connected. The hard disk size, let's make it 30. So change the 127 down to 30. We'll go ahead and go next. And I'm going to install an operating system from the SW-DVD9 Core 2019 ISO image. Same one we installed the first 2 servers with. Should be in your C ISO folder. Because we all installed. Did everybody find the file? Okay. As long as you look there in the middle, it says Core 2019. We'll hit open and we'll hit finish. We can go ahead and connect to the system, and remember having to hit the space bar when you click the start, and then hitting a key to boot to the disk or the ISO image. So the install is just like before, almost just like before. We're going to just click through and install. It's the addition of server that's going to be different. It's actually going to probably default to the one that we want to install. So the recommended, it even tells you recommended. It omits most of the Windows graphical environment. Managing with a command prompt, PowerShell, or remotely on another computer system that has a graphical interface. It's not exactly what it says, Windows Admin Center or other tools. So leaving the top option checked this time is what we want to do. And we'll go next. Y'all are enough computer geniuses. It's now time to make y'all cry. Okay, so what do we do here? You remember? Yep. Custom, because it's blank. Blank 30 gig drive. If you try to upgrade, it would fail going, well, I don't see anything to upgrade. The install process should be a little bit faster than the server with the graphical interface. So I've got server 3 from the other class. It's got more stuff on it, but it's 7 gig in size. You're looking for a graphical installer, you're looking at 11 gig. It's already restarting. Is it restarting on y'all side? Told you that was quick. I just can't go back to a system that has a plattered hard drive in it. It's so slow. The first boot is always a little bit longer than subsequent boots. Once we come up, we're not greeted with a graphical set your password screen. We're greeted with a command prompt. It is a menu driven. The user password must be changed before signing in. And you either have OK or cancel. And if you hit cancel, it's just going to go right back to the same screen because username password must be set before signing in. So you got to hit OK and just hit enter. The password won't show as you type. I don't think it does. Oh, it does. And of course, the mouse doesn't work. So you have to know that tab moves between fields in a graphical or in a command prompt. So once you type the first one, you have to use your tab key and you'll notice the cursor will move down. And we'll warn you, some of these dialog boxes after passwords won't show the stars. That way a shoulder surfer can't count how many characters the password is. That can confuse some people. I don't remember where that hits, but there is a place where that it doesn't show the passwords being typed. So it says my password's been changed and I'll just keep on hitting OK. Or the enter key. I'm logged in. Great. Now you don't know what to do. Now you're stuck. It's blinking at me. Right-clicking doesn't, oh, right-clicking there does something. Cool. I don't like this thing. Let's close it. Some of y'all are afraid to close there. Yeah, like you're tricking us, Mr. Goodman. Close it. Hit the X button. Okay, this happens all the time. What do? You panic. So, keyboard shortcut combinations: Control Shift Escape. We'll bring up Task Manager. That's awesome, even with the new Windows 11 coming out, because they don't have the right click. You can't right click Task Manager and taskbar and launch it. So I guess Windows 11, I'm going to be using keyboard combinations when I'm forced to upgrade to it sometime in the future. They took stuff away, but Control Shift Escape's been there forever. Pretty sure somebody said it still worked in Windows 11. So learning that. I can bring up more details. It was like, great. And what do I do now? I can launch a program from Task Manager by going File and Run a New Task. And the command prompt is CMD. is Microsoft's abbreviation for command prompt, CMD. Something you should that should just be known for IT person. The CMD launches the command prompt window. That's how you get that back. Knowing that Control Shift Escape to bring up Task Manager and launch processes. You can even launch things like Notepad, some other stuff through here, but there is a limited number of things that we can do. So the system's up and going. I want to modify some of the RAM settings, but I can't do that while it's running. So now we got to figure out how do we shut the system down. There's not a start button to click on to shut the system down. There's a command prompt. Great. What command do I type to shut it down? I think maybe Linux. Power off. And it doesn't know Linux commands. It says, what are you talking about? Well, darn it. The tool that I use at this prompt is system config, which is abbreviated sconfig. I like it because it gives me numbers that I can choose, and I can shut down the server. So that was sconfig, CONFG, no spaces or anything. CONFIG, yeah, SCONFIG, sconfig. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a 14 here because that's for the shutdown. You want to shut down? Yes. Should have been 14. And then your numlock key may not work. You may have to use your.
I don't know why the numlock keeps like turning on and off, on and off.
Yeah, when I run with virtual machines, I either have to always fight with the numlock key or use the ones on top of butters. So the system shut off. I'm going to go ahead and modify the RAM settings. The settings are file settings, and the memories 384, and the maximum is the 4096. I'm not going to worry about bumping the CPU up or anything. I'm just going to do the RAM because it's not going to be running database or anything like that. It's for our class, it's going to be a file server and a single processor, single threading is all it's going to need for our purposes. So I'm just going to modify the RAM here and hit OK. Then I'll go ahead and restart the thing. Start. One thing I'm curious is the amount of RAM that it's going to use after it settles down. The startup memory is 4 gig, but after a period of time, the virtual machine will talk to the host and tell it I'm not using that much memory, and it'll free up and back down. So I'm going to go ahead and log into the system using the same little button up here, to Control Alt Delete button, and you can type your password to get in. So cool. We got logged in. You have to configure the server. And as I said, pretty much I just run sconfig at this point. Sconfig will allow you to be able to configure the server enough to remotely connect from a Windows 10 machine or from a server with running graphical tools or from PowerShell and manage it remotely. So there's enough options here for us to configure the system. I'm going to look at, I guess, I read magazines backwards. Start at the back cover and flip backwards. It's weird. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to configure it backwards. I'm going to start it down here. It looks like the first configuration thing from the bottom looking up is number 11, activate Windows. So I'm going to start there at number 11, activate Windows. And I can install a product key, number 3. So I've not installed a product key yet. So I'll hit number 3. And I need to type in the product key, which is a Google search, AVMA keys. So you remember having to find the 2019 version. They've already put the 2022 version out there. So the TNK, one that starts with TNK is the one you're looking for. So again, I search for the AVMA keys, that big bold.
2019 version?
Yes, 2019, the TNK is what it starts with, the 2019 standard.
Oh, there it is.
And then remember, you got the clipboard type, clipboard text menu. It should give you a prompt saying the product key was installed successfully. So Pedro, you see that, what was it, number 11, and then number 3,
Yeah,
install product key. Let me see where you're at. You're at number 3 now, yeah.
There's just, I don't know what happened to the product key box. It just here.
Hit enter, hit Alt Tab if it, or hit enter. If it doesn't show up, use Alt Tab. So hold down your Alt key and hit Tab.
Oh,
Yeah. Then go to clipboard menu at the top and tell it to type clipboard text. If you copied it, if you didn't copy, go over to your web browser and copy that line. Yeah. Now use your Alt Tab again to, and then go to clipboard and type. There you go.
so I don't know.
Mhm. Just like this right here, if I click outside of it, it goes in the background. Alt Tab is a key combination to cycle through. That works also in all your different windows. Let's see. So like this black screen here, I'm just, once it's said it installed successfully, I'm just going to exit. And I'm looking at my RAM. My RAM's brought up to 658 meg to run this system. Pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to, so if I'm looking at the bottom down here, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to return to the main menu, number 4. Date and time, number 9. going to change my time zone to the correct time zone. Should be like a -6 US Central Canada. Not Central America. It should have US Canada. The next thing coming up from the bottom is the network. So number 8, network settings. So with the network settings, it shows you all of your adapters and it labels them 1 through the number of adapters you have. And we only have 1 adapter, so it's number 1. You got to select it by typing the adapter index number. I assume everybody's is number 1. So hit number 1 and enter. It should bring up and show you having a PIPA address. You probably learned about a PIPA, automatic private IP addressing, a 169 number. Normally it means bad, or you have no DHCP server on your network. Which, yes, we have no DHCP server and it is bad because we've not manually configured the address yet. So we need to fix the IP address. So we'll do number 1, set network adapter address. And it'll ask us to press in a D for DHCP or S for static. I just told you we don't have DHCP. So capital S there, to select static. And then it should ask you to enter a static IP address. And is everybody there? So Pedro, number 1, and then S. Yep. Okay. So we're on the 192.168.1. So our server 1 and 2 are on that network, and we've already used 1 and we've already used 2. What do you think we should use for server 3? 3. So it automatically suggests the subnet mask based on the 192 at the beginning of subnet mask, the old classful. And yes, that's what we used on servers 1 and 2. So just hit enter because it says a blank will fill in the default of what's there. So we don't have to type anything. We just hit enter without typing anything and it'll automatically put that subnet mask. Servers 1 and 2 did not have a gateway because we don't have internet. So if you don't have a gateway, what do? Don't type anything, hit enter. It's now running the process of setting that IP address up. Mine took a little bit. Interesting. I don't think I'm running any other system with that address. Hope not. Everybody get this? So if you're looking at it, it shows you what's been configured. It should show your 192.168.1.3, your triple 255.0, the DHCP is false, gateway is blank. We also have preferred DNS server and alternate DNS servers, which are blank. That is not appropriate on the network. We need DNS servers. You remember their server 1 and 2 are the DNS servers. So let's look here. We have number 2, set DNS servers. So type the number 2 and ask you for the first DNS server. 192.168.1.1 because that is servers 1's address. It's the primary DNS server. Doesn't really matter. They both do the same thing. As we hit enter, it's going to automatically ask us for an alternate. Almost all networks have a backup DNS server, so it automatically asks us for the second one, 192.168.1.2. Then it refreshes the page and re-shows us our network adapter summary. Does everybody show the DNS setting? So Pedro, looks like you just hit enter there for default gateway. And just hit OK on that. You missed doing, looks like number, I'm not sure what you've done. That's weird. Weird, why is it still, so 1 static.
That's what I did. Who's supposed to be capital S or?
What somehow got, and you're missing number 2 there and entering the 192.168. You can go and enter 192.168.1.1. Oops, sorry. I'm gonna get off your screen. You'll have to click, bring it back up. Nope, 1.1. Yeah. And then same thing, but 1.2 at the end. Okay, now you're looking good. Except for some reason it's got a gateway set, but that shouldn't hurt anything too terribly bad. Does everybody's look like mine? IP address, subnet mask, and then the 2 DNS servers. And Pedro's, yours should work even if you have a default gateway. It would not blank it out for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 4. It says return to main menu for number 4. Anybody else need help? Everybody else got their IP set? Very good. Okay. Remote desktop. I'll go ahead and enable remote desktop by using number 7. And we can enable or disable it. So use the appropriate letter there. We'll enable it. And you always want to err on the side of more security. So they either give you want more secure or less secure. I always want more security. Choose the more secure option. You know, to reload your menu, and it should say number 7 out beside it is enabled and more secure clients only. We don't need to worry about Windows updates because we don't have internet access. Remote management is enabled. Our computer name is obnoxiously long, not literally obnoxious. I want to change my computer name to something that I can remember. What do you want it to be? Server 3, okay. So I'm going to number 2, enter new computer name. Server 3. You want to restart? Yes. I want to restart. Go ahead and log in again. And I'll go ahead and launch sconfig again. Now the server name, this name can be changed after we're joined to the domain because it's not ever going to be a domain controller. But I'm going to just double check, make sure server 3 is spelled right. It is. Cool. Last thing I could do, I can join it into our contoso.com domain. This will let us know if our IP addresses work and our network connections are all good. So it's number 1. We want to join a domain. So use the option for joining a domain. It shows at the bottom of the screen. Type the domain name that we created last week. Specify an authorized user. You can just type administrator. Followed with the password. This is where it doesn't show the typing. I knew that somewhere it's going to not show me type password. If you get this dialog box, it pretty much means you've successfully joined the domain and you want to restart. And I don't want to change the computer name before restarting, so I'll just hit enter. It's defaulted to no. And then you must restart. I'll just hit enter. It's defaulted to yes. Let me know if you got an error with that. So Pedro, look, I see a dialog box at the back. Use your Alt tab to bring it forward. Nah, pass 1, 2, 3, 4, and it won't show you typing anything. Yep. So if you type some stuff, you may just hit backspace about 10 times and then top pass 1, 2, 3, 4 again. There you go. And then just hit enter and then, oh, you shouldn't have hit yes. Top, I'm not sure what it's doing. Just hit enter and see what happens. Okay, now type 13. And yes. The domain contoso.com. And then it's administrator is the username. And then you just hit enter and it won't show you what you're typing, but the pass 1, 2, 3, 4 password. And then you just continue to hit enter until it, using your enter key, not the mouse, because it defaults to no there, which is no, and then it defaults to yes on that one, which will reboot the system. And my system went to a black screen. So does reset work? So I'm still having some issues. I'm going to hit the, if you ever end up like this and it doesn't restart during a reboot, you can use the black square, turn it off, and turn it back on, and it normally fixes it. You just can't speak in absolutes when you're an IT person. It's not very cool. If you've accidentally logged into the system and run sconfig, go ahead and use the option in sconfig to log off. Because you've logged in as a local administrator to server 3 and not a domain administrator to the domain. So if you're still here at the Control-Alt-Delete screen, you're good. So we'll go ahead and hit the Control-Alt-Delete buttons. And we have the option of logging in as administrator, but we don't want to log in as a local administrator. We want to go ahead and hit escape and switch users. And hit escape again. Sometimes it won't bring you to this, and you actually have to log in, run sconfig, log out, and then do it again, hitting Control-Alt-Delete and say other user. I've seen that happen before. It's just random on when it decides to work or not work. It's Microsoft. They randomly work or not work. So if you can't get to the other user by using your escape key, then you may possibly have to go ahead and log in as administrator, run sconfig, use the option to log off, then try it again, logging on using escape until you can get to other user. So other user. Just like server 1, when you type administrator, the Contoso is going to change to server 3. So watch. Administrator server 3. That's not what I want, Microsoft. So you have to put at. Contoso.com. And then again, the tab will move down to the password field. Once you type that in, administrator@contoso.com, and allow you to type in the password. And that should get you logged in to a domain admin account. Cool. Should be user and administrator.contoso, not just administrator by itself. Okay, I really don't want to do anything else here because there's nothing else in sconfig except for shutting down the system or logging off that I can do. I mean, I can run some PowerShell commands here, but typically these servers, well, they are running virtual machines, so you can connect to them and hit the console like we're doing here. Most servers that you would run today would be running virtual machines unless they're the host machine. So our machine is run in 2019 and hosting all of these virtual machines. If you get into any size company at all, you won't be running Windows 2019 as a virtual hosting server. You'll be running VMware, a different operating system. So you won't be sitting at a server logging into it. There'll be blades in the closet somewhere. You'll be in your office on a Windows 10 machine using remote access tools, remote desktop or remote access tools. So I'm going to close down this. I'm going to go to server 1 and log in. So we're almost to lunchtime, but here's where the magic happens. All servers is only server 1. But I know I have server 2 and server 3 in my network now. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to use Active Directory users and computers, and I'm going to make sure that, yes, server 3 is under computers. It exists. Domain controllers, yeah, server 2 exists. They're there, I see them. So I'm going to close out that. And here's the magic part. Go under manage. What do you think we want to do under manage?
Probably,
Nope. But we want to add
add server.
servers. Since we're a small network, it's okay to click find now. If you're at UAMS or any production network, that'd be kind of dangerous. So it'd take too long to load like 28,000 nodes at UAMS. You wouldn't find, you'd have to sort of know names already. But since we only have a few, you can click find now to find everything. I'm going to go ahead and click on server 1's already added. So I'm just going to click server 2 and hit the arrow and click server 3 or double click it either way and get it over to the right side. So those are the 2 extra selected computers, and I can click OK. They will add into server manager. It shows all 3 servers are activated. It shows their IP address. Kind of cool. We're not going to add anything right now, but we're going to open a dialog box and then cancel it. So we'll go up here, back up here to manage. We'll add roles and features. And I'll go ahead and next to this role based. Yep, next. So at this point, I can select the server that I want to add roles to. I can click server 3. For some reason, mine's out of order, but whatever. That annoys me. It's not in order. So I'm going to go next. And I can see I can select roles and add to the destination server 3 up there. I don't have to go to server 3 and do it. I can use graphical tools and manage server 3 because client server. I'm going to cancel that. So we've reached the end of class. Maybe you feel like you've accomplished a little bit. We got server manager that can now manage 3 systems from one login sitting right here with administrator. It's pretty cool. Well, on Thursday, we're going to add some roles, but we're not going to go the easy routes. We're not going to add these roles. We're going to start looking at command prompts. We're going to launch a PowerShell window across it and start looking at what is PowerShell. We'll work with it the whole semester, but leave these up and running and just close them out. Don't shut them down. So left all 3 running.